Let's take a look at some of our national and international headlines for this Friday morning. As always, I've got much more news, between 30 and 40 minutes in audio form that I deliver directly to paid subscribers by way of email every morning at 5 a.m. If you're interested, hit me up at radiofreespeech.com. Russian Black Sea research vessel collides with a freighter. It sinks. Nobody hurt. They managed to rescue all 78 crew members. Very nicely done. The senators who attended the White House briefing on Wednesday about North Korea said they basically learned nothing, that the administration wouldn't give them any straight answers about what the actual military threat is or what military response might be considered. And now there's been a softening in the White House stance away from the military rhetoric and more toward a diplomatic approach, which I believe was the approach that had been in place for the last 20 years that Trump said was being so ineffective. Meanwhile, both Washington and Seoul have pledged swift punitive measures if North Korea proceeds with another nuclear test. The sixth one, I think it's on store for sometime in the next weekend or what have you. And now, of course, those punitive measures would include new UN security resolutions and sanctions, something which actually China may now beginning to be enforcing, as the rumors in Pyongyang following the gas shortage that's going on right now is that China is intentionally choking the supply of fuel in order to help put more pressure on Pyongyang to back away from their nuclear aspirations. Meanwhile, the latest briefing from the commander in the Pacific says that Hawaii is currently threatened by North Korea. Based on what they know and what they've seen in the missile tests that North Korea have done, they believe that Hawaii is in the crosshairs, and they're urging more deployment of anti-missile defense, what have you, something which, by the way, they're putting in Seoul, which China is objecting to because those radars can actually go into Chinese airspace, and China's like, hey, you're putting us in jeopardy by putting your THAAD units, THAAD, I think is what it's. Anyway, now China is pledging to have their own war drills, basically against the United States, for the U.S. putting our weapon system right in their airspace. An Israeli strike or two have hit some arms depots in Damascus. Actually, these are Hamas terrorist units being targeted all the way from Israel, all the way into Damascus. And there was another terror incident in London as an attack in Westminster, what they're calling it, was foiled, as a man was arrested with a backpack full of knives. So it's not enough now that you're going to ban guns in Britain. I'll bet you they start going after the knives next. Just throwing that out there. Berkeley is bracing itself at the possibility of more violence there. The Ann Coulter speech canceled because her supporters basically backed out of it. At this point, they're like, hey, there's too much threat of violence one way or the other. Now they're saying there might still be violence as groups on the other side are coming forward to protest the fact that she wasn't going to speak because the other side was protesting. The EU Trade Commissioner says that the EU bloc will, in fact, do a post-Brexit free trade deal with the UK. And there's a new study out that says that space junk is threatening space travel. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today on my commentary. Make sure you check that out and tell me what you think. Trump backing away from his promise to get out of NAFTA, now saying, yes, NAFTA can stay. We'll just kind of renegotiate as we go. And British Airways in a bit of hot water now as they apparently tied up a diabetic passenger who was just simply trying to straighten his puffy legs because he got out of his seat. They tied him up, and they landed at a remote military base on the Azores, cut both him and the person who stood up for him thrown off the plane. There's a new website that's going to be offering U.S. women advice on how to perform their own abortions. And a little bit more here about the protesters, the Antifa, that's supposedly anti-fascist, the ones that are calling for violence against those that they don't agree with. Well, they had apparently made some threats against the Portland Rose Parade, so the organizers canceled it. And now the protesters are calling for the reinstation of the parade. And it's kind of interesting because they're the ones who basically caused it to get canceled in the first place because of their threats of violence. Oh, one last story just to consider. A surgeon claims that the cryogenically frozen brains that are out there, they could start getting them woken up in as little as 3 years. I thought the whole point of having your head frozen was so that they could wake you up when they have something to fix your disease. Have we fixed all the diseases yet? I don't know, something to consider. I wouldn't want to be woken up and be like, hey, what? I'm just ahead? No. Anyway, check me out, radiofreespeech.com. I'm Steve Floyd. Thanks for listening.